All right, Jimmy, we should be rolling with the recording now. So our topic, guys, this week is going to be field underwriting. What we're gonna attempt to do today is kind of take the mystery out of getting the client properly set up into the right product. I know we've got a lot of new agents on. Some guys are new to senior solutions, some are just kind of new to the insurance business. And I know for a lot of agents, it can kind of be a little bit overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, I got all these products. How do I know which one is going to be the right way to go? The purpose of this training call is to kind of demystify to that, and we're going to help you in asking the right questions so that you can do proper field underwriting. And Jimmy, one of the reasons why proper field underwriting is so important is because it's going to help you with your placement and persistency. I just give you two examples. If you put the client in the wrong product and you're not asking the right questions, and they get turned down, as an example, or they get rated up um, through no fault of your own, sometimes you lose the deal because the clients get discouraged and it doesn't go through, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops and call back, ask them more questions. Sometimes clients will just get frustrated. They're like, oh, just forget it. And then other times what will happen is that um, you know, an agent doesn't do enough homework and they don't ask the right questions, and they're diabetic and they got COPD and they had heart surgery 5 years ago. They're on four different medications for high blood pressure, and the agent just says, screw it, man, I'm going to put them guaranteed issue. They put them on guaranteed issue, and then 2 months later another agent rolls in and says, well, wait a minute, I can get you, you know same day coverage with this other carrier, and they replace it. So you really, that's the importance of doing field underwriting. If you put the client into the right product, and you're much more likely to keep that client on the books, and it's less likely that policy will ever get replaced. So with that, Jimmy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of turn the call over to you, and I'm going to roll into the slides. I'm going to let you dive right in and just start talking about how you talk to us, I guess, Jimmy, about how do you transition into field underwriting, and when are you asking the questions, and maybe we can kind of role play a little bit and we can go through the questions that you specifically ask your clients.
Okay. Well, if you're going back to the flip chart, after the three options of proper final expense planning, which number one is to do nothing, number two is to get a prepaid funeral plan, and number three is to get a final expense whole life insurance. I go through that page and ask them which one makes the most sense for you. They always say number three, which is life insurance. And then I'll say, great, let me go ahead and ask you a few health questions so I can determine your rate and eligibility. They'll say, okay. And then question number one is real simple. You just ask, what prescription medications are you taking and what are they for? And so this right here, like a lot of people, they'll have all their medications. They usually say, do you want me to go get them? And I say, yes, go get them. Most people have them like in a little basket, or I see a lot of people have them like those little soft ice chest kind of things. But and sometimes people bring me a ton. Sometimes they have a list, but they will bring them to you. And what you want to do is you want to go through each one methodically. You want to write down, make your notes, the name of the drug, and then you want to ask, what is it for? What did they prescribe this for? And that second part is probably the most helpful, is to find out what the medication is used for. Now, if they don't know what it's specifically used for, then go ahead and Google it. It'll tell you the common reasons why that's prescribed, and then go through those options, and they'll tell you, oh, it's for this or it's for that, and then write it all down. So when you're done with that, you're going to have a very good understanding of what their current health is. And I'm going to underline the word current because it doesn't talk about previous health, but it'll give you a good idea where they're at right now. Okay. And then now you got to ask some additional questions. So the next one is the heart. That's usually where I start. And I'll say, have you ever had any heart attacks, strokes, irregular heart rhythms, or procedures done like stents, pacemaker, bypass, angioplasty? And I kind of ask that all like running together and let them answer. Now, again, I emphasize the word ever because I want to know, maybe they had a bypass surgery 10 years ago. Maybe they had a pacemaker 7 years ago. I want to find out. So I don't say in the last 2 years, I ask ever. And then start getting dates, writing down, what the diagnosis was, what the date was, when were they last treated for it. We're gonna get all that information. Okay. And it's really key to get last treatment date. Okay. Um, Next, I go into AIDS/cancer. Have you ever been diagnosed with AIDS, HIV, or cancer? Again, if so, get the date last treated and what's their current status. Okay, are they cancer free? For how long? And then I move on. So Joe, if you want to go to the next slide.
I will. Let me go back up to the question number one. Just
Okay.
to add a few more comments in here about the what prescription medications are they taking, what are they taking them for. Jimmy, I do the exact same thing you do. But guys, if you want to add a little humor to the situation, like when you've been doing this for a while, you'll have the client that are literally uh, Jimmy talking about bringing a basket. I've seen clients actually take these like a bread basket almost, or like an Easter bunny basket, just like filled up with medications, and then they set it on the table. Well, this is it, and then so do what Jimmy did and go through each one methodically and look them up. But um, the one thing I wanted to add, Jimmy, is that when you look up medications, let me give you an example. I see a lot of clients that are taking uh, metoprolol, if I'm saying that right, for high blood pressure. It's a pretty common medication. But as an example, when you Google it, it also talks about um, that helps prevent strokes, heart attacks, kidney problems. This medication can also be used to treat chest pains, like angina, also used to help improve the survival after a heart attack. So in situations like this where you have medications that have um, dual use, and the client says, "Well, I just take it for high blood pressure." Great. My recommendation is this is a perfect time that you want to fill out if you, especially if you're doing Transamerica, even Mutual of Omaha, is fill out the supplemental form with Transamerica and list the medication and let the underwriter know that it's taken strictly for high blood pressure. And with Mutual of Omaha, you can do the same thing. You can put that into the comment sections. And then the other thing that I'll do is that when we go through all the medications, let's say there's 15 medications, and I go through each one and I'm taking my little notes and all that stuff. I look at them, I'm like, is this it? Is this all you got? They'll look like, oh, isn't that enough? I said, well, let me ask you a question. What about medications you haven't taken? Are there any medications that you didn't bring out that maybe you stopped taking within the last few years? Because one thing that will kind of throw you off sometimes, guys, is that a client, I'll give you an example. I had a client that I wrote up last week, actually about 2 weeks ago, that used to take insulin, um, but they took her off of insulin and she's on pills only now. Okay, but the insulin still showed up on her MIB, and I didn't write it down. I messed up, and then when I submitted the app to Transamerica, um, they came back and says, "Well, when's the last time she's taken insulin?" I never knew she took insulin. I had to call her and say, get all the dates and all that stuff. Had I done a little bit better legwork and asked, hey, are there any other medications, or like, because when she told me she was on diabetes or she had diabetes, I said, well, do you take insulin or pills? She goes, I just take pills. So I just never thought to ask, "Hey, well, have you ever taken insulin?" So just little things like that. Sometimes you want to dig back and find out if there's any medication that they stop taking. So Jimmy, I'll flip it back over to you.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and move forward to the next slide.
Got it. There you go.
Okay, so then I go with the lungs. I asked them, have you used tobacco or nicotine products in the last 12 months? Get an answer there. On my notes, I just put either NT for non-tobacco or write TOB for tobacco users. Do you have COPD, chronic asthma? I ask them if they use oxygen or if they have a CPAP machine or inhalers. Uh, a lot of those are going to be no, but then when you get to inhalers, they'll say, oh yeah, I have an inhaler. One thing about inhalers, normally they don't bring that out when they bring out their drugs, so you want to make sure you ask for it. If they do, then get the details. What was it diagnosed for? Is it for asthma or is it for COPD? Is it just because they had bronchitis? Like, you want to find out what it was for. Uh, on the I guess you can say on the label, does it say daily use or does it say as needed? Okay, because a lot of carriers, they classify chronic as if they have to use it daily, right? So that would be the difference between chronic asthma or chronic bronchitis if they have to use it daily. Okay, unless it was something to treat, like let's say, I'm trying to think of one of the drugs that my son uses. He has asthma. It's used to treat, to prevent, um, you know, um, asthma attack. But so you want to get all that information,
Is it like
okay?
Jimmy? Is it like the rescue inhaler?
Well, the rescue inhaler is usually albuterol, but it's a different one.
Okay.
I forgot what it's called, but anyhow, a lot of people will tell you that they do not have COPD. They'll say, "Oh no, I don't have that. I have asthma, or have this, or have that." And then when you look at the drug, you want to Google it again and find out what it's prescribed for. Like, what I've learned about COPD inhalers is that when when the doctor prescribes it, like, it's very specific to COPD, so they won't prescribe that for asthma. So if it's not a multiple use inhaler and it specifically is for COPD, I guarantee you that's the way the underwriter and the insurance company is going to classify it. So you want to make sure you find out, right up front. Going to number 5, it says, kidney/liver. I'll ask, do you have hepatitis C or B? Have you ever had it? Cirrhosis of the liver, chronic kidney disease or end-stage renal disease, which requires dialysis. You want to find all of that out. A lot of people have had like Hep C and been cured from it. They take that drug called Hervani. If that is the case, just a quick note here, like, you can go with Liberty Bankers on that, but if you can also go Transamerica. But if you go with Transamerica, even though they're answering no to all those questions, and let's say they're cured of it like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, Transamerica is going to require the blood work on that. They're going to want to see that, so you're going to have to just know that up front, that they're going to have to get it. And then the last question that I go with is mental health. I'll ask about Alzheimer's, dementia, bipolar, schizophrenia. Usually there's a big laugh there. They always say, well, my wife or my husband says that I'm bipolar, and I'll laugh and I say, yeah, they're probably right. But has a doctor ever told you that you had bipolar? And that's really about the 6 areas that I ask. Now, from there, you should be able to have a really good understanding of what direction you're going to go with, and be able to make a recommendation as to which carrier. Keep in mind, you have to pick between the carrier and then the grade of the coverage. So it might be preferred, it might be standard, it might be graded. You might have to go guaranteed issue, but you'll know what direction you're going to go. And then, Joe, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, let me just add in a few more things here. Did you mention on the COPD? Did you also mention like if they have an inhaler, one of the things that the insurance companies will kind of go by is how often they get it refilled?
Right. Yeah. I didn't ask that. You're right, but that's a good question to ask. Is how often are you getting this refilled, or when
Yeah,
was
so
the
I'll
last time?
add, yeah, so I'll have clients that say, well, I don't have COPD, and they'll have a inhaler for COPD, and I'll ask the question, well, how often do you use it? When's the last time you got it refilled? And if you can look at the label if they show it to you. I mean, if the last time they got it refilled was a year ago, um, there's a good chance that you can get them to like slide through and just pass that off as like not COPD if they're not using it. But that's what they're going to look at, guys. They're going to look at the medication and then how often it's getting refilled. Um, I tell you another example of like a person I got stumped with, Jimmy, is I wrote up a lady who said that she had an inhaler and she showed it to me. And I'm like, well, this is for like COPD. And she goes, well, my pulmonologist says I don't have COPD. In fact, I don't even use it anymore. I'm like, okay, cool. So wrote it up. Transamerica comes back and I call them. They're like, dude, she's getting this thing refilled like every like 90 days or whatever. And I called her. I said, Brenda, man, you said you didn't use it. She goes, I don't use it. She goes, but I give it away to my friends. And I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me. So anyway, long story short, I ended up having to write her standard because she's giving her medication away and getting it refilled every 90 days. But
Hmm.
anyway, I thought I'd just add a little bit of just some of the funny stuff that we run across in this business. Now, Jimmy, I have a personal question for you. Okay,
Okay.
this is like a lot of information. So, and you're just doing it off the top of your head. So, let's say we got a brand new agent on the call. I mean, how do they? Because when you're doing this, you don't have anything in front of you. You're just doing this off the top of your head, right?
Right.
Right. So how does an agent do that? How are there any tricks or anything that you can think of as like how do you go through all these questions and kind of before we actually get to the application um, to kind of narrow it down to what product is going to be the best product?
Well, if you're brand new, you might want to print it out, and have
Just
those
have
with
like
you.
a cheat sheet or something.
Well, they can screenshot this right now if they're on the webinar and
Right.
you know print it out and then go ahead and just ask those questions. But I can just tell you, like me as a very brand new agent, what I did is I just asked the questions that were on the application.
Right.
Uh, I did that for a while until I developed, these six areas that I pick on, and really I got it from you, Joe. This is what you trained me to do a long time ago. So and then once you've finished asking all the questions, I think what you want to know is about the cheat sheet. So yes, there is a cheat sheet that you can use. There's two of them. We have one at Senior Solutions, and then we also have one through YIG that you can look at the common health, conditions and know what direction is going to be best to fit this client.
Right.
So I don't
But at the end of the
that
day, man, the best thing to do is always start out with their medications. Start out with all the medications, get those down, and then just kind of in your mind, all you really got to do is just kind of picture the human body and all the different parts. So you think about like the torso and what do you have inside the main part of your body? You got your heart, so you ask about heart questions, lung questions, major organs like liver, kidney, um, and then you think about the brain, any brain disorders or central nervous um, you know disorders. And people will most often they're not trying to hide things, so they'll be forthcoming on any type of issues that they're having. All right, let me go ahead and move to the next screen. Here you go.
So we kind of just talked about that. Now, once I've made a decision as to what direction I'm going to go with the carrier, and I'm making that recommendation, then I'm going to go ahead and grab that carrier's brochure. Let's say I'm going with Transamerica as an example. I'm going to give them that brochure. I'm going to, open it up and show them the accelerated death benefit and explain, the benefits of it for terminal illness and nursing home confinement. And then I'm going to hand it to them and I'm going to ask them to look it over while I calculate the rates and options. And then this gives them something to do while I'm working on their quote. Okay. I put their note. I always quote one payment for couples. I call this a combo deal. So when I'm working with a husband and wife, I don't show them their individual cost. I just show them one price that covers both. This is the key to getting double headers. I will say that, I get a lot of double headers because I do it this way. It works especially well if you have one person that has a much higher rate for a particular reason. Maybe they're going standard, maybe they're a tobacco user, maybe they're a lot older than the other person. And so I'll give you a case in point. I had one recently for $10,000 of coverage. The husband was going to be $77 a month for $10,000, but the wife was only going to be like $39 a month, right? So for the two, it came out to a little bit over $110 to cover both of them. In their eyes, they're like, wow, that sounds good, because they're basically cost averaging it in their head.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
They're thinking about $55 a piece, which seems good.
right. So instead of them saying, no, we're going to pass on him, but we'll go ahead and get it on her, and you get a little deal out of it, you get both of them. And I do this all the time, Joe. Like every week I get double headers. So I'm just telling everybody out there, you want to quote a combo deal. And then when you're writing up the apps, don't show them the individual rates, because that could cause an objection. So I just leave those blank and I just go with the combo quote, and I make sure they understand that they're each covered. This price covers both of you, and they're good with it. Okay, so then once I show them the three options, I ask them what makes the most sense for you and your budget. Once they select a face amount, they say yeah. Then I get the application. This is what's really important. Is, every carrier's questions are different, but you're going to write them up. Now you need to go back and ask those questions specific to that carrier. So just ask the questions. You might know the answers already because you already asked most of them, but there's going to be a few there that you might have missed. Like, for example, in the next 12 months, are you going to have a surgery that hasn't been done yet? We didn't talk about that earlier, but that's on the application, right? So you need to ask these specific questions. Sometimes they'll come up with something that, you hardly ever hear about, and that might change your game. And again, it varies depending on the carrier, but you need to ask every question. Now, I can tell you this, I've had a lot of agents, I know that they're not doing this because they're calling me, asking me simple questions as to, will this carrier cover that? Would this be graded? Would this be standard? Well, the answer to their question is on the application. So if you're able to answer no, then it's going to be probably preferred. But if it's a yes, depending on where that yes is, it might be standard, it might be graded, but you need to ask those questions, and you need to read the application, the carrier app. They're all either knockout questions or they're a tiered system. So I'll use Transamerica as an example. The first section, if the answer yes, they're not eligible for any coverage. So when somebody calls me and they ask me, uh, will they cover them for oxygen use? I know they didn't even ask the question on the application because it answers it right then and there. If they answer no to everything in section, the first section, they go to the second section and they answer yes, then they're graded. Again, we're talking about Transamerica. If you go down to section 3 and there's one yes, not two, but just one, then they could have standard coverage, which is day one or immediate coverage, but it's a little bit higher rate. That's a great option because some other carriers like Mutual of Omaha, they either have level or graded. There is no middle ground. Okay, so read the health questions and read what it says on the app. If they say yes, this is what they get. Okay, so I mean it's real simple. The answer is in the application itself. I don't know, Joe, if you want to expand or say something to that.
No, that's perfect. There's one other thing I want to go back on real quick, and that is on here. Let's see, where are you asking about? What section are you asking about diabetes?
Oh, you know what? I didn't put that in there. You're right. I do ask about diabetes, uh, but I missed
Yeah,
that
I was
one
like
when I was
looking at
filling
that. How do you edit it? All right, so talk about. Okay, so guys, that's the one thing we need to add to this is that you. Well, normally that will come up when they're having their medications, like the list of medications. But Jimmy, give us some pointers, like when they do have diabetes, because that's one of the things that you really want to kind of drill down on and ask a lot of
Sure.
questions about diabetes.
Okay, so when it comes to diabetes, I ask them, of course, do you have diabetes? If the answer is yes, then you need to dig a little bit. So, like, when were you first diagnosed with diabetes? At what age? Like, let's say they're 70 and they say, oh, I was diagnosed, 15 years ago. Well, then you know that it was after age 50, right? Um, there's really three age, I guess, areas that you're looking for. Were they diagnosed before age 50 or after is one. Before or after age 19 is the second age that you're looking for. And before age 9 is the last one. Okay. If they're diagnosed before the age of 50, Mutual of Omaha is going to put them graded. In Transamerica, they can still be preferred as long as they were diagnosed after the age of 19. And with Liberty Bankers, as long as they were diagnosed after the age of 9, they're still preferred, right? Um, then when it comes to insulin use, I mean, it's kind of sneaky here. So with Mutual of Omaha, if they're diagnosed after age 50, it doesn't matter if they're on insulin or not. They're still level coverage, okay? But let's say they're diagnosed at age 45 and they're on insulin. Well, see, now you know, okay, this is going to be standard with Transamerica, or it could still be preferred with Liberty Bankers. So anytime they're on insulin use with Trans, it's going to be a standard. With Liberty, as long as the insulin use was after age 25, it's preferred. Okay,
Mhm.
and then
Without provided no complications.
right, and that was my next thing is that then you want
Yeah.
to ask about are there any complications associated with the diabetes? Okay, so the most common is going to be like neuropathy, right? So then I ask them, are you taking gabapentin? I always specifically ask that, even if I've already gone through their medications or maybe I've already discovered it in their meds, right? But so like if they're taking gabapentin with Mutual of Omaha, they're going to be graded. That's an automatic. So it doesn't matter what they say. If they're on gabapentin, they're going to be graded with Move. So you already know, go ahead and go with Trans or Liberty because they don't really care about that. Now, other complications could be diabetic comas, diabetic strokes, amputations. You need to find all of this out. Okay. Now, for those new agents, if they've had an amputation, maybe it's just the pinky toe. Guess what? That's guaranteed issue. Nobody's going to take them. So you just want to go ahead and switch over to guaranteed issue at that point. Any amputations that are due to some sort of disease or disorder is gonna disqualify them for coverage. Okay, if it was an amputation due to a car accident or something like that, that's different. But if it's disease or disorder, specifically diabetes, it's going to put them in a different category. I don't know if you want to say anything to that, Joe.
No, perfect.
What else? That's
Well,
really about it.
yeah, here's what we got. I mean, through this, and then, guys, we've got the cheat sheet, and then so
There you
we've
go.
got two, and this needs to be a little bit updated. It's got the main carriers that we use: Transamerica, Mutual of Omaha. Guys, those are our two main carriers. So typically, we're looking at TA, MU, probably Liberty Bankers on this sheet, which is LBL. And if they don't qualify for there, we're going guaranteed issue. I don't have AIG on here, but that's our new kind of go-to company uh, for guaranteed issue.
Hey,
So
Joe,
there's three.
I want,
Yeah.
I want to make a statement here real quick because I see a lot of errors on this right here. So
Okay.
a lot of agents say, Jimmy, well, they were diagnosed with congestive heart failure like 4 years ago, or they're diagnosed with AFib like 3 years ago. So on here it says over 4 years, they're preferred, right? So that's not diagnosis date. That's like when the last time they had it. So in other words, if they're currently, their current condition is congestive heart failure, AFib, or something like that, then that is within the last year. That's how you answer that. It's like if they no longer have congestive heart failure and it's been more than 2 years ago, then that's where they go preferred or AFib. So I just want to make
Right.
that
Now,
clear.
I could see where that could be confusing. It's not, oh, wow, you've had congestive heart failure for 2 years now. Great, you get preferred. Um, right. No, I totally, get with what you're saying. Guys, too, this is I mean, this cheat sheet is not from the carrier, so it's not, there's some gray areas in here. So this is why it's good to get to know the different carriers. And when in doubt, make a phone call. Call the carrier and get a risk assessment done. But this is just to kind of give you kind of an idea. This cheat sheet, it's 3 pages, but it covers heart attack, heart surgery, stroke, congestive heart failure, AFib or irregular heartbeat, pacemaker implant. Covers most of the top ones. Who's the best for COPD? One thing I'll say about COPD and like congestive heart failure, um, those are typically two diseases that you never get cured on.
Yep.
So, I mean, I mean, I've never seen it. I mean, but typically, if someone has congestive heart failure, it typically doesn't go away. They're usually on medication for the rest of their life. And COPD, there's no cure for COPD. They can only treat it. Um, this talks about oxygen use. Like here where it says over 2 years, like preferred with Transamerica, not that they've been on oxygen for 2 years. It's been over 2 years since they've used it. Same thing with Alzheimer's or dementia, guys. If you see all the way through here, everybody's declined, guaranteed issue. Bipolar depression, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, and then this is the last page. Diabetes is probably the trickiest. You see a lot of asterisks in here. So just, be careful on the diabetes. Use the cheat sheet. Understand if you need help with this cheat sheet. If you don't need help deciphering it, let me know. But again, you always have the carriers, man. Call the carrier, get a risk assessment. The better you know your products, the easier it's going to be to do proper field underwriting. And my recommendation is that if you're new, don't try to learn every single product. Deal with just 2 or 3, and then have a guaranteed issue product as your backup. But this one talks about kidney issues, who's the best for internal cancer, lupus and systemic lupus, and then height and weight questions. Just be careful on height and weight. because everybody has a bill chart except for Transamerica and guaranteed issue. So you may have someone that looks really good and you're thinking, man, this is a perfect candidate for mutual, but they're 3 pounds over the weight limit. It could kick them down to graded, or it could actually disqualify them from even having coverage. So be careful of the height and weight. And then this lets you know if a phone interview is required. Transamerica, there's no phone interview. Mutual, it's recommended. Foresters, it's required. American Amicable, it's required. Liberty Bankers, it's required. Okay, and that gives you the phone number here. And then we've got another cheat sheet that a lot of agents will use. This one you can get off of the back end of the Your Insurance Group website. If you like this one better, if you like the way it's laid out, use this one. Doesn't matter to me. Just pick a cheat sheet that you like and carry this with you. I still carry the cheat sheet today on my clipboard, and I refer to it all the time. But and then this is a two-pager as well. Anything else, Jimmy? I think we've covered just about everything.
I do want to say something, and that is, if you have a gray area, you definitely want to, either call the carrier and ask for underwriting and ask for a risk assessment, or go ahead and just do the phone interview. If you're doing Mutual of Omaha, do Aptical and do the phone interview right up front. If you're with Foresters, do the interview. If you're with Liberty Bankers, do the interview. The only one that doesn't require the interview is going to be Transamerica. So in that case, you want to call and get a risk assessment.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really great idea, and I do that all the time, man. If I got someone, I'm just like they're borderline. I just screw it, man. Let's just I'll call Liberty or whatever and just try to get them approved over the phone. That way, I'm not messing around with it.
Yep.
It's a great point. All right, man. Anything else before we let everybody go?
That's it, Joe.
I do. We actually ran over today. My apologies, guys, for running over. I guess I didn't have this timed quite properly, but thank you for attending. And like I said, we'll get this field underwriting webinar, that portion of the call, we'll get it published onto the website so you can refer to it later. All right, Jimmy, have a great weekend, buddy.
Same to you. Thank you.
All right, man. All right, everybody, take care. God bless. Bye.